Imagine the nation's future Army leaders, gathered in proud rows under the hot May sun for their West Point graduation. Parents and loved ones sit breathless, ready to witness their children cross that boundary from cadet to officer. The President of the United States is here, prepared to give what should be an inspiring and unifying speech. But then, as Donald Trump steps to the podium, all cameras zoom in. He's not wearing a solemn black suit or army green cap. Instead, he puts on the unmistakable bright red "Make America Great Again" hat. Within seconds, the room's energy shifts. Some gasp. Others pull out their phones, snapping photos that whip around the globe in minutes. The story is out. The Commander-in-Chief has turned graduation into a campaign moment. And suddenly, the world is asking, has the wall between America's military and politics finally crumbled? Today, we dive into the controversy that sent shockwaves through both military and political circles. The MAGA hat at West Point. Was this a harmless gesture or a historic breach of military neutrality? And more importantly, what happens to the world's most powerful military if its apolitical traditions collapse? To understand why this event rattled so many, let's rewind. West Point isn't just any college, it's a living symbol of American military tradition. Founded in 1802, it's the United States Military Academy, tasked with training leaders not just in warfare, but in duty, honor, and country. The Academy's rituals are steeped in the idea that service comes before politics. It's a code that's held for generations, no matter who sits in the White House. At the heart of military professionalism is the concept of non-partisanship. From day one, cadets are reminded, their ultimate loyalty is to the Constitution, not a party or personality. This isn't mere tradition. It's hardwired into Department of Defense regulations and echoed in countless speeches from West Point alumni. In the words of Todd Ozier, a West Point graduate and military historian, political tensions have occasionally surfaced at the Academy, but overt displays of partisanship are rare. That discipline is essential for trust within and outside the ranks. But the last decade in America has been anything but normal. Political temperatures have soared, cultural and social divides have spilled into boardrooms, classrooms, and now onto parade fields. Even before the 2025 commencement, experts and journalists debated whether America's armed forces could remain immune from the polarization fracturing the rest of society. The military's apolitical stance is more than symbolic. Peter Feaver, a political scientist at Duke University, warns, the intrusion of partisan politics into military ceremonies risks undermining the apolitical image crucial for military effectiveness and public trust. Lose that trust, and both recruitment and retention suffer. The military could become just another institution viewed through a partisan lens. Then, on May 24, 2025, the tension boiled over. As news broke that President Trump donned a MAGA hat in front of the graduating class at West Point, social media lit up. Reactions poured in from every direction: journalists, veterans, political scientists, and even some in the cadet ranks themselves. Podcaster and Army veteran Fred Wellman wrote, "This is deeply disgusting," wearing his pathetic campaign hat to the West Point graduation. Others saw it as a deliberate political move. On Blue Sky, David Bernstein summed up the shock. Our president is currently delivering the commencement address at West Point while wearing a MAGA hat and talking about his great campaign victory and various fantastic accomplishments. WTF. But why exactly did this spark such fury? To grasp the full magnitude, we need to look at how the U.S. military, and West Point in particular, are supposed to act during political seasons. Traditionally, military academies operate with almost surgical discipline when it comes to separating politics from ceremony. The Department of Defense has detailed policies restricting political activity by service members. The goal is clear. Military leaders should never appear to endorse one party or another, especially during official events. Every public statement, every ceremony, is scrutinized for even a whiff of partisanship. Yet America's armed forces are not hermetically sealed off from the realities of civilian life. Service members vote, form opinions, and, like the rest of the population, are exposed to the 24/7 churn of news and social media. The challenge, as Professor Lindsay Cohn of the Naval War College points out, is to differentiate between individual political views and actions that explicitly endorse a political agenda during official military events. That's why President Trump's appearance in a hyper-political hat at a military academy's graduation hit so hard. It wasn't just a quirk of personal style, it signaled, intentionally or not, that the symbolic leader of America's armed forces was using his platform for partisan, even campaign-oriented messaging. As economist Patrick Chovanec darkly quipped, the only difference between a MAGA hat and KKK hood is that the KKK were ashamed to show their faces. Plenty were quick to ask, was this even real? Was the president's iconic red cap photoshopped onto his head by a prankster with an axe to grind? The answer, as confirmed by multiple news outlets and even by Elon Musk's own Grok AI tool, was unequivocal. The image was authentic. No credible claims of digital fakery emerged. The controversy was about meaning, not manipulation. For many in the military and government, the central question wasn't whether Trump had violated a technical rule. It was bigger. Where exactly does the line lie between free expression and the need for military neutrality? Rosa Brooks, a law professor at Georgetown, explained the dilemma. While the First Amendment protects free speech, military institutions have legitimate reasons to regulate political expression to maintain order and neutrality. In short, what a president wears at a military ceremony isn't just a fashion statement, it's a signal, and possibly a threat, to one of democracy's oldest unwritten rules. Complicating matters, neither the Department of Defense nor West Point's leadership immediately issued a condemnation. Instead, a flurry of behind-the-scenes conversations began. Policy guidance was quickly reviewed. West Point's alumni network buzzed with concern. Would the Academy's reputation for non-partisanship hold, or would it be drawn further into the country's culture wars? Some alumni and military officials argued that the president's appearance, even in partisan regalia, was protected as part of his unique position as both commander-in-chief and political leader. Others, like Lawrence Korb, former Assistant Secretary of Defense, expressed deep unease. Trump's actions represent a worrying trend of politicizing the military, potentially affecting recruitment and morale. Yet partisanship within the military is not a new problem, even if recent years have seen it escalate. History offers lessons. During the Civil War, the U.S. Army fractured along political and regional lines with devastating consequences. In the years since, the unified, nonpartisan image of the armed forces has been carefully rebuilt. Occasional breaches, like controversial speeches or endorsement-like gestures, have been met with sharp pushback. But never before had such an overt symbol of a polarized campaign appeared at a West Point commencement televised live around the globe. So, what's really at stake? For young officers, the prospect of entering a world where their loyalty might be questioned based on politicians' actions is unnerving. For the public, seeing the military swept up in partisan drama chips away at enduring trust. For the world's adversaries, it suggests a new kind of American vulnerability. At this point, the backlash is in full swing. Some demand investigations, even censure. Others call it a tempest in a teapot. But as the days tick by, familiar questions sharpen. Can the U.S. military enforce its apolitical code amid the most polarized era in decades? And if not, what cracks might form in the nation's ultimate shield? In the next chapter, we'll explore what happened behind closed doors at West Point, inside the Pentagon, and among cadets suddenly caught in the political hurricane. Most importantly, we'll face the uncomfortable question: could this incident be a preview of even deeper divisions to come? But what happened behind the scenes at West Point and within the Pentagon after the MAGA hat incident? The answer reveals a battleground where tradition, principle, and politics collide more fiercely than the public ever sees. In the days following the commencement, West Point Superintendent, Lieutenant General Mark Adams, convened an emergency meeting with senior faculty. According to leaked transcripts obtained by the New York Times, the room was tense. Cadets had begun whispering about the speech, some joking about the hat, others expressing outright dread at what it meant for their future as Army leaders. One instructor reportedly told colleagues, "We teach honor, service, and unity, not partisanship. The cadets are looking to us for answers." At the Pentagon, the reaction was swift but careful. Defense Secretary Sarah Wheeler fielded dozens of questions from anxious reporters and anxious generals alike. Top brass quietly clarified that Department of Defense guidelines prohibit service members from wearing political symbols while in uniform or on military property, a policy designed to ensure the armed forces remain above the fray of campaigning. Yet, as civilian commander-in-chief, the president isn't bound by those same strictures. Still, the spectacle sparked alarm. A senior Pentagon official, speaking off the record, admitted, "We asked ourselves, if this can happen here, what's next? Will we see campaign slogans at Arlington? At the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier? The lines are blurring." West Point alumni lit up online forums. Some, like retired Colonel Peter Lynn, fired off letters to the Academy board. "If we allow political branding at graduations now, our next generation of officers will wonder whose side the Army is truly on." Others, more sympathetic to Trump, countered that military leaders shouldn't overreact. He's the president, and if the commander wears a hat, so what? The world isn't ending. Meanwhile, students, past, present, and future, watched the drama unfold. First-year cadet Olivia Martinez shared with a classmate, "My family sacrificed for this country. I want my army to serve everyone, not just one side." So was the uproar just a blip or a harbinger of deeper divisions? According to a Brookings Institution report released days after the event, 2025 could mark a turning point. As politics becomes more polarized, the pressure to display loyalty may tempt more leaders, present and future presidents alike, to test the limits of military decorum. Dr. Peter Feaver, a seasoned analyst, summed it up. If partisan symbols become the norm at military functions, the very fabric of civil-military trust could unravel. This isn't just theoretical. Historical precedent shows the danger. In the final years of the Roman Republic, military legions began to swear loyalty to individual politicians instead of the Senate. The result? The Republic fell, replaced by dictatorship. Could it happen here? Experts argue that America's institutions are stronger, but the price of complacency is high. As Dr. Lindsay Cohn points out, it's not about one hat, one speech, or even one president. It's about a series of choices. Each moment that chips away at apolitical tradition makes the next breach easier. Looking forward, there are several scenarios on the horizon. First, we could see a clampdown. The Pentagon and service academies may introduce stricter vetting of guest speakers, even presidents, carefully reviewing talking points and protocols. Security teams might even carry backup hats, plain black or Army-issued, just in case. Second, there's the risk of escalation. In a hyper-partisan era, future presidents, or their opponents, might feel emboldened to outdo each other, using military events as campaign stages. Imagine an inauguration at Annapolis with partisan banners, or a fundraising pitch at the Air Force Academy. The symbolism would be explosive, the consequences unpredictable. Third, the military community could push back. If officers, NCOs, and rank-and-file soldiers collectively say, "No, this is where we draw the line," it could signal a reawakening of the apolitical ethic. West Point's Alumni Association might take a stand, lobbying Congress to codify tougher standards. The Department of Defense could clarify, not just for cadets and staff, but for all who enter academy grounds, including presidents. Yet there's also an opportunity. Crises force reflection. West Point, the Pentagon, and military families nationwide may double down on what unites them: honor, sacrifice, and the ideal of serving all Americans, not just those wearing the right color hat. But what does this all mean for you, the viewer? The first lesson is vigilance. The institutions that protect democracy are only as strong as the people who defend them. When you see headlines about politicization of the military, it's not abstract. It's about whether America's defenders can do their job without fear, favor, or faction. When military leaders start showing partisan symbols, it signals to every service member that loyalty might become conditional, and that is dangerous. The second lesson is engagement. Civil-military relations are not just for generals and presidents. They belong to every citizen. Stay informed. Ask questions. If you have loved ones serving, talk to them about what they see and feel. Don't be afraid to speak up when lines are crossed, even if it seems like just a hat. A third takeaway: remember the power of tradition. Rituals, uniforms, and codes aren't just for show. They signal to the world, and to ourselves, that the military serves something bigger than any party, president, or movement. This is why, for over 2 centuries, West Point has stood for duty, honor, country, not duty, honor, candidate. Finally, don't underestimate the consequences of small breaches. As history teaches, the slide from respect to division begins with gestures that seem minor until they're normalized. Every citizen plays a part in upholding or eroding those norms. So how should America move forward from the MAGA hat incident? West Point's internal review recommends holding a formal recommitment ceremony every year, where cadets, faculty, and guest speakers all pledge to uphold the Academy's nonpartisan values. The Pentagon is quietly circulating a memo, urging commanders at all levels to discuss why neutrality is not just tradition, but a safeguard for democracy. Opinion pieces have started to appear in major outlets, some calling for legal reforms, extending restrictions on partisan symbols to all official events, no matter who's present. Others warn of an overcorrection, arguing that censorship could itself become a political weapon. The debate continues. But there's a deeper, perhaps more personal benefit in reflecting on the story. It asks each of us, what does it mean to lead in divided times? How do you resist the temptation to pick a side when the stakes and passions are high? For young officers, the lesson is clear. Always remember whom you serve. For citizens, it's this: healthy skepticism keeps institutions honest. Ask your representatives how they'll protect our military's independence. When you see traditions challenged, don't shrug. Voice your concerns. And here's a secret fact. According to a 2007 internal West Point survey, never made public but referenced in confidential alumni minutes, over 80% of cadets believed the school's greatest strength was its refusal to endorse any political party, even during wartime. That silent consensus, more than any speech, built trust across generations. As Dr. Rosa Brooks told us, the future of American democracy depends, in part, on the public's faith that the military answers to all, not to one. In the end, the MAGA hat incident at West Point was more than a fashion controversy. It was a warning flare. Will we heed it, or let the lines between service and politics dissolve? That choice ultimately rests with all of us. If this story made you think, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever witnessed partisanship creep into places it didn't belong? What would you do differently if you were in charge? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to follow more deep dives into the moments shaping America's institutions and our future. And remember, the